Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2495. Today we're going on a ride with a racer who is truly, truly inspiring. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in Sharon, Connecticut with a very special and very inspiring guest by the name of Torsten Gross. Torsten, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
I'm ready, and let's go fast.
All right, and we will indeed. Now, before we get started, and I give you a proper introduction, and we dive into your life, I always ask my guests this question. What's one little thing that people may not know about you, Torsten?
I am the world's only quadriplegic that's a rescue scuba diver.
Wow. Okay. Well, you broke the little secret here pretty quick, but that makes my mouth go open because I'm trying to think how. So that could probably take up an entire show, but because we're going to talk a lot about your racing and all the other things you do, but what made you choose that as one of the many things you've decided to accomplish in your life?
You know, I'm somebody who wants to find loopholes. And when I started diving, I needed something called an HSA certification, which is Handicapped Scuba Association certification. And so did my dive partner. But I wanted to go diving with friends that might not have that certification. So what was the loophole? Well, the loophole is if you have a rescue diver certification, they don't ask you for anything else.
Oh.
And so I had to go to 6 dive shops. They all said no to me. The 7th one, I put money down. I said, I'm not taking this money back. This is yours. I welcome you to fail me. And all I want is for you to give me a shot. And that dive shop said, all right, kid, we'll fail you, but sure, we'll give it a shot. And the rest is history. I managed to do it. And to everyone's surprise, even my own. And now I can dive with whoever I want. That's why I decided, let's go for my rescue.
Now, how old were you at that point in your life?
I was 36, I believe.
36,
so almost 10 years ago.
Holy cow. Well, that sets a tone for you listeners that today is going to be quite inspiring, quite interesting, and no excuses for anything out there, folks. Okay, so as you start your day today, think about Torsten, and let me give you a proper introduction here. Torsten Gross is a maverick, yeah, no kidding, in every sense of the word, not happy with the status quo, mixed with his entrepreneurial drive. He enjoys the challenges of the word no. I love that. As a C6 Quadriplegic since the age of 15, he has heard that word far too often, yet still finds a way to say yes, like he just explained. This drive has led him to become the world's only quadriplegic who is a rescue scuba diver, as he said, completing 12 marathons. Okay, now I feel like a wimp, Torsten. In 12 months and into his latest adventure as a race car driver. That's right. In 2023, Torsten competed in the International GT HSR and World Racing League races with his hand-controlled Porsche 981 Cayman. Love Caymans. Alongside his adrenaline-seeking events, Torsten has had a successful marketing career as a strategist. He currently works as the Chief Marketing Officer of MateriaMX. He is also the co-founder of Just Hands Foundation, which we'll learn about today, a charity that helps hand-controlled drivers enter the world of performance driving. His past experience includes Deloitte Consulting, RGA, TSC, BBDO, and Partners and Partners. So sit tight. We're going to go for a fun ride today, but first a word from our sponsors. So we'll be right back. Give them a little love, won't you? How did you discover your path to a fulfilling life? Too many young people flounder in finding an education and a career that fits. But for those who have a passion for cars, trucks, and motorcycles, and who love working with their hands, problem solving, and fixing things, a career as a professional auto technician is incredibly rewarding. Cars Yeah is pleased to team up with TechForce Foundation, our charity of choice, in bringing scholarships, technical education, and hands-on experience to young people so they can discover a possible future. Join me and lend your support by visiting techforce.org today. Are you ready to take charge of your financial future? Then let me introduce you to Capitalize Your Finances. It's an online course designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools for mastering your money. This course will help you lay out the ins and outs of budgeting, the importance of emergency funds, investing strategies, and how to plan for a secure retirement. All this presented by financial planner Chris Paniotu. Chris has developed this course to help you effectively navigate your world of finance with confidence. Stop stressing about money and start taking control. Enroll in Capitalize Your Finance online course today and pave your way to financial success. To learn more, go to capitalizepodcast.com/courses, or better yet, go to the Cars Yeah website, show notes page for today's show, and click on the link under Capitalize Your Finances. You'll be glad you did. Do it today. So, Torsten, we are back. Boy, there's a lot to talk about here today, but I want to start with an interesting story you told me before we got in the air here, and that is your name. You have a very unique name. Now, I've interviewed people from all over the world who have some very unique names, but you explained your name in a way that brought a huge smile to my face. Would you share that with our listeners?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Torsten Felix Gross. So Torsten comes from the Thor, the thunder god. And then Sten is kind of the extension of a name. It means rock. And then Felix means happy. And Gross means big and tall. And I'm 6'5", so it's appropriate. But backwards, I'm the big happy rock of thunder, which essentially means I'm a band that I would go see. Like if I were to paint a picture of that, I would be opening for They Might Be Giants, and I would go see the big happy rock of thunder. So that is, you might not remember Torsten, the name, but you'll probably remember that story. So, at least hopefully.
Another big smile on my face. I think after we talk today and share your story with the Cars Yeah listeners, everyone's going to remember your name. I have no doubt about that. So I'm trying to figure out this morning, where do we start with you? And I want to start with how we got together, because you're doing a joint deal with Pennzoil and a guy named Joey. And I got some videos that were sent to me by the nice folks at Coin PR about you out on the track. Let's start with racing, because we are Cars Yeah. And I want to ask about, why did you choose racing, given the challenges that you have? I have a feeling you don't even look at these as challenges anymore. What was it about that? And talk a little bit about this collaboration that you did with Pennzoil.
Yeah, so I'll start with how I got into racing. Well, my wife got me a track day at Lime Rock Park in Connecticut. We live next door to Lime Rock, and this was only 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. And while on track, I'm very fortunate to say I've done a lot of things, some of what you've read with skydiving and marathons and scuba, but none of that makes me equal to able-bodied people. You and I will never do a marathon in the same division. You and I will never play basketball in the same division. You and I will never do anything in the same division except tracking cars and racing cars. The car doesn't care that I'm in a chair, and no one on track knows that I'm in a chair unless they saw me in the paddock. And this year will be 30 years of me being in a chair, and the freedom of that, the freedom of being equal to other people is something that is very hard to explain in words. And that first time being on track, I got off the track and I said to the guy, Don, who is my coach, I said, I need to buy a race car, and he kind of smiled with, yeah, sure. And then a month later, I had found my track car, and I was, well, let's say, off to the races. And I came home and I said to my wife, baby, we got to buy a race car. And, in good fashion, being married to me, she kind of just rolled her eyes and didn't even say no. She just knew, okay, this is the next adventure. This is what we're going on. But she also noticed how much love I had. And that then translated to being found by Pennzoil and working with Pennzoil. And they have been, look, I'm an ad guy, so an advertising guy. So for me, partnerships are incredibly important. But more so, authenticity is incredibly important. And they didn't need me to tell me their authenticity of how they have basically the shared commitment that I do of mobility for all. And, which is appropriate. It's Mobility Awareness Month. But whether it's putting me in their ads or working with Joey Logano, I've now met a group of people who share the exact same vision I do. And that's been amazing.
I love this concept of freedom and what getting in that car, in essence, gave you that feeling of freedom and being an equal. Maybe that's the wrong word, but I think you know what I mean. You're out there with everybody else.
Yep.
Everyone's sitting in a car racing. How they're doing it may be a little different for you, but the fact that they're out there doing it. And even going back to just the idea of the automobile and the freedom that it gives us. When we all are young and we drive our first car, it's like, oh my gosh, I can go anywhere. Wow.
Yep.
This is pretty cool. Now on a track, it adds the enjoyment and the fun of going fast, which sounds like you're guy that likes to do that. And I have to touch on a little thing you just tossed in, skydiving. You went skydiving too?
Well, yeah, because if I crash, I don't feel my legs, so who cares if I break them? But
Jeez.
no, skydiving. I mean, look, I enjoy anything that challenges my life insurance policy, and I get to make that joke because my wife's not sitting next to me right now,
Yeah.
and so, or maybe she would appreciate that joke. Who knows? Depending on the day, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, skydiving. Look, as anything that challenges my life insurance policy with adrenaline is kind of up my alley.
Oh, there's some insurance guys out there just biting their lips right now, as they should. Yes, you guys. We pay our premiums, so there you go.
Exactly.
That's the risk you take. Also, with this collaboration that you did with them, you guys created some videos, and I'm going to put links to those on Torsten's show notes page so that you listeners can take a time to go and see those and be inspired by those. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And, I wanted to mention, I've had several guests who have faced some challenges. In fact, all my guests in some way have, and we'll talk about what I call the challenge question in a minute, but I wanted to mention a few, and you may be aware of these, Torsten, but a reminder for long-term listeners or new listeners here, past guests, going all the way back to guest number 492, Dan Parker. He was the first blind motorcycle racer to set a speed record, I should say, on the Salt. And then along came guest 805, Ben Felton, who can't talk today. Ben Felton, who set a land speed record on a motorcycle, and he's blind as well. And then you probably are aware of Sam Schmidt, former IndyCar driver.
I know Sam, sure.
I'm sure you do. And current owner of the Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports in the Indianapolis area, talked about him driving, I think being the first guy to drive using just his breath. Do I have that right?
Yeah, breath and his helmet, which reads which way he's looking, which then steers the car.
Yeah, it just phenomenal. So lots of inspiration here today, and you join a very cool elite group of people as well. I want to talk a little bit about inspiration because you are an inspiration, but no doubt you've been inspired by others, and maybe some of these guys I mentioned that have been past guests on the show. Is there a story you can share with us that helped you or has helped you in your life to inspire you to be the adventurous person that you are?
I think about this a lot, and it's the reality is that I don't have one person that I can say is an inspiration because I look to everyone for inspiration because each human, I believe, has something amazing to offer. And as I think about that question, I have just in 1 minute of thinking about it, 30 people that I can rattle off that all share the same space. And I don't want to be trite with my answer, but if you look to the skill sets different people have, the motivations, the inspiration, everybody that you just talked about, whether blind or disabled or no matter what their personality is, everyone's got something that has helped me. And the reality inside the disabled world is, and even the able-bodied world, is that we are all different. And, whether you have quadriplegia, paraplegia, spina bifida, it doesn't matter. We all have different capabilities. And so that means we all have to get creative with how we attack problems. Now, the same thing goes for able-bodied people, right? Some might be tall, some might be short, some might be larger, some might be skinnier, some might be stronger or weaker. So we all have to be creative when we answer problems. And so when I look to inspiration, I see inspiration everywhere. And I mean that legitimately. And I actually don't see it as inspiration. I see it as motivation because I then look at something and go, well, inspiration is defined as giving me creative thought. I look at it as motivation. Well, if that person can do it, well, I might not do it the same way, but I'm going to figure this out too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to fail a lot doing it. But let's give it a shot until it works.
So you would be a great person to ask this question. How do we, those listening out there that maybe can't see that in others, that we see the cynicism in the world or just view a person by one dynamic, let's say, well, that person's just mean or whatever it might be. How have you managed to find inspiration in everybody? What is it that you do, either in your mind or physically or whatever, that enables you to do this? Because this would be a great trait for everybody to have.
It's a great question. So I'm going to first start out by saying I believe that everybody has a wheelchair. And what I mean by that is, look, if you've got depression or Tourette's or PTSD or you lost a family member, whatever it is, that is your version of a wheelchair. Basically, what I'm saying is it's something that you believe holds you back. And if you understand that everybody's got something, that's step one. Step two is, while I think we believe that everyone's strength is also their biggest weakness, I would argue that everybody's weakness is their biggest strength. So let me give you one example that's not wheelchair, and that's depression. So depression is something invisible, and you might be a jerk to somebody that day, or they might perceive you as being a jerk. But the reality is that, you might just not be having a good day from a depression standpoint, and you can't say to everybody, hey, I'm sorry, I have depression, right? That's just not possible. Now, why that's your superpower is you might understand what it's like to not want to be, loud or outgoing all the time. But that means that you can relate to other people that might also not want to be loud or in your face or, kind of the personality that I tend to be sometimes, right? Very, very outgoing. And that gives you a superpower to be able to relate to people that I might not be able to relate to. So I think if you understand that everybody's got something that you can't see, mine happens to be something you can see, and you understand that that's actually a superpower and not a weakness, then it allows you to look at people and go, what's their perceived weakness, and see it as a strength, and use that, right? And then internalize that for good, right? Not for bad. That goes to everything from racing cars to being a good manager at work, right? How do you take that person's weakness and make it into their strength and then empower them that way? So that's kind of how I live my life. Do I see bad in people? Sure. I can't say that I don't, but I try to also see where somebody might be falling down and go, well, how do I use that to make sure that they don't anymore? And how do I help them succeed?
I love this. Yeah, so key. And I'm glad you mentioned depression, because I would assume that maybe something that has challenged you at some point, maybe not. And I wanted to talk about this with my challenge question. Obviously, at a very young age, 15 is when you became a quadriplegic. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that you're at that point in your life where like the whole world is your oyster and this happens to you. So if you can allow me to go here with your challenge, and if there's something else you want to talk about as a challenge, we can certainly delve on that, because it seems like you face everything as a wonderful challenge and not a bad thing. And that's why I like the word challenge, because I try to view it as something different. Whenever somebody tells me they have a problem, I just say, no, you don't have a problem. You just have a challenge. How do we overcome that? I learned that from my dad. So when it came to that point in your life, and how and when you decided to become the man you are today, which doesn't seem to have any self-pity at all. It's all about, how can I do this? How did you overcome that? What was it that clicked in your head? Were the people around you? Was it something inside of you? Did it take time?
Oh,
big question. I know.
Can we split this into 4 shows? Because yes. I got a lot of answers to that.
That's okay.
Look, I think
Go for it.
It's people around me, like my parents definitely did not make my life easy, because they made me do everything myself, right? And as a quadriplegic, the only way, it's like a little child. Right? Like, you've got to let them fail in order to succeed. And, in order to try things, I have a lot of people around me that allow me to fail. And what's always interesting about conversations that I have is we talk about a lot of successes, and very rarely do we talk about failures. Now, I can tell you my life is a collection of failures. But I actually see that as a badge of honor, right? Something as futile as or small as it took me 8 years to put my socks on myself, and then I figured out how to do that. And well, it's putting on your socks yourself, but great. And then as something as big as, well, how do I race cars? I've had I'm not going to name them by name, but a very large organization that is not a pro organization, but a large car racing and club organization that wouldn't let me race with them because they said I could not get out of the car quick enough, even though the average age of their drivers is around 95 years old. Whoa. And but I'm not going to say who it is. And I said, well, if you're going to challenge me, you have to challenge everybody else in your organization to do the same thing. Now, I ended up not having to do that because I decided, how am I going to prove them wrong? I worked with so many different people around me to figure out, well, one, how do I get out of the car safely? And I can tell you I can get out of the car in around 12 seconds, if not less. And I'm just going to go race in other race leagues that are bigger and better. And I'm going to prove to them later on that when somebody says no to me and that there is a challenge in front of me, there are people that are going to tell me no, and they're not going to listen. And there are people that are going to tell me no, but come back and prove it to me when you're ready. And it's that second group that I like, right? Because, all they need is proof. And then there are other race leagues like IMSA and SRO and International GT. And actually, the majority of them, they didn't care at all. Somebody said, well, you being in a wheelchair is just as insignificant as your hair color. And I went, that's a great response, right? So I put in front of you the challenge of, being a quad is in itself by definition a challenge, being a quadriplegic. But I think if you see something as a challenge versus just a momentary glitch in the universe that you'll figure out very soon, then it'll happen. And lastly, I'll say this. I believe that no is just a request for more information. Mm-hmm. If somebody says no to me, then I go, well, obviously I haven't explained it to you the right way yet, because if I had explained it to you the right way, you wouldn't have said no. So let me keep telling you. And I think that wears people down a little bit. And I'm okay with that. Because then I get to prove them why that their perspective might not have been the correct one at the time that we were talking.
See, I needed you when I was in high school and college asking girls out on dates. I might have had more dates if I'd looked at it that way.
Look, I might be good at this motivation thing, but I don't even know if I could have solved that for you. But,
gee, thanks a lot, pal.
I'm kidding.
I love it. I love it. No, it's all good. I wanted you to explain that because I think everybody listening, in whatever capacity they are in their life, whatever challenges they face in their life, they're going to pick some golden nuggets up from what you just said. And if they can pick those up and carry them with them every day. And I wanted to kind of migrate this into another question that I typically don't ask, but I'm going to ask you is, what does the beginning of your day look like? And the reason I ask you is not so much the physical attributes of it, is more the mental, because a lot of people who are successful talk about meditation, they talk about affirmation, they talk about getting up in the morning, and first thing I do is 3 thankful things. Like my dad used to do this. He goes, every morning I wake up and I said, I'm still on top of the dirt. And I always used to laugh at that, but that was his outlook on it, maybe because he grew up on a farm in Texas and the dirt had a lot to do with his life. But what are some ways that you start every day with this positivity that you have?
To the chagrin of my wife. She just looks at me and she gives me this eye roll, like, really? Like, how are you here right now doing this? Because I'm wired. But you just said meditation. I've been doing transcendental meditation for the good part of 10 years now, which has fundamentally changed my life. And I'm not a religious person. I don't like those types of things normally are not really in my repertoire, but when I tried TM for the first time, something that's not scientific, or I'm probably going to get bad emails saying that because there is science behind it, but there's the meditation portion of my day, in the morning and the afternoon. I do 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon. It has calmed me down and made me very focused. And if you can't tell, I'm somebody who is just I'm trying 50 things because I know 48 of them are not going to work out. And the two things, the two things I am going to get lauded for, that's great, but I need to try 50 in order for 2 to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that, right? I think being at peace with failure, starting your day going, all right, what's going to happen? I've lived a very unconventional life in terms of work and play and physicality and all that. My day never looks the same. And I think giving it a moment in the morning to go, what am I going to do today and how is it going to happen is very important. And I think what we tend to do is we tend to look at our phone, the first thing that we would do when we wake up and we start working. Well, that never gives you a moment to reflect, right? And I think you then don't see the big picture anymore. And so I don't open my phone right away in the morning. I give it a minute and, I let the day come to me instead of me answering emails and then just trying to scramble from that second on.
Yeah. You've inspired me because I've wanted to try TM for a long time and I have not given it enough gusto, I guess, as I would say. I watch a video or two and I go, I just don't get this. How does this work? And I was just watching a video with Jerry Seinfeld. He seems to be everywhere right now because of the movie he just came out with. And being a car guy, I like following his passion for Porsche because that's a car of my choice. And he has said, I think last thing I saw was 3 things that you need in life. Transcendental meditation. He's found that, he's also found stoicism, which is another great concept. But TM, I think the other one was laughter, humor, of course, and then caffeine, espresso, I think is what he said. But I'm going to challenge myself here, even out loud to all my listeners and you. I'm going to give this TM a chance because I keep hearing it from people. I keep listening to successful people that have used it and do it. And gosh, this goes all the way back to when my parents in the 60s, there was a guy on our street that taught TM when it first kind of came to the U.S. And I remember my parents going and learning and getting their, I think there's a word, I forget the word, like a saying that you use in TM.
Your mantra.
Mantra. There. Okay. Well, that's duh. I thought it was more fancy than that. And yeah, so I'm gonna do my best. For someone like me that just said that, where's a place to start?
Honestly, just call your local TM. I think it's tm.org, and just go meet with them. They give you your mantra and they take you through it. I think the one lesson that I learned, and again, I think the title of this podcast could be called Failure, because I'm going to say that word again, and that is they teach you to be okay with failure, and that meditation isn't something that is correct, but rather it's just something you do. And Maharishi Mahesh Yogi had said, take it easy, take it as it comes, which I now have tattooed on my forearm, because as your day is happening, as you're meditating and all that, take things easy, right? And take the thoughts as they come, because it's just going to happen, and don't react right away. And I did not take things easy, and I did not take things as they came. And so I actually had to write it on my arm in Sanskrit. And that's now there to remind me every day that it's there. It's not the prettiest of tattoos, I'll tell you that, but it sure tells me a good message. At least I hope so. I hope it doesn't say I like fried rice, in another language. That but
yeah. Well, you never know. You never know. Well, I appreciate.
You never know.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. It's great advice, and many successful people that I know that use TM have said great things about it. So there you go.
Yeah.
Now, bucket list questions. What do you want to do? Oh my gosh, I'm afraid where we're going to go with this. What are some other, aside from racing and skydiving and scuba diving and all the things that you've done, what's on your bucket list?
I mean, look, there are 2 responses to that. The clinical response to that is right now is I want to have hand controls in every arrive and drive around this country and around this world. From a Just Hands perspective, from my foundation, right, that means then I can go to any track and go drive. In terms of doing something else, I mean, I don't know. Had you told me I'd do 12 marathons in 12 months, I would have told you I like smoking cigarettes too much. And this is before I quit 10 years ago, but
good for you.
I would have said there's no way. Had you told me that I'd be a rescue diver, I would have laughed. Had you told me, that I'd be racing cars, I would say you're talking to the wrong person. These things just kind of find me, and the list grows, right? Like, and so I enjoy learning, and I enjoy just figuring things out. And so my bucket list really is just something I do every day. That sounds so weird, but I'm so lucky and so grateful to be able to do things that I love with people that I love around me that support me, saying, well, you're nuts and you talk too much, but we'll be behind you anyway. So I think, bucket list, I could get cliche and say, I'd love to go. Well, I don't even know. If I want to go do it, I'll find my way to do it.
Yeah.
Like, as an example, I wanted to go drive spa.
Ooh.
And in Belgium. And so the second car that my foundation, Just Hands Foundation, actually has is a car at Spa and Nürburgring, because I contacted the Arrive and Drive company and I said, I'd love to have a Just Hands car there. What do you think? And 3 months later, we were there at a private track day at Spa. And then the next day at Nürburgring. So, these bucket list things are happening. Again, to be able to drive with a 2-time NASCAR champion and to teach him how to drive with hand controls and shut down Charlotte Motor Speedway, that's not something that I would have put on my bucket list, because I never thought it would be imaginable. Mm-hmm. Joey and I both work with Pennzoil, and they made that happen. Like, who knew that was a bucket list item?
Yeah.
Well, it was, and I got to do it. And man, I'm fortunate and grateful every day. I don't take any of this for granted, and they made it happen. So does that answer a little bit? I didn't give you a specific response.
Well, I kind of figured we'd go somewhere like that. And I want to touch on this Just Hands Foundation and Just Hands Racing. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so because of everything I've said about it being as freeing to people in chairs, I wanted to. I personally believe that a passion isn't something you should just do yourself, but you're obliged to share it with others. And after a couple months of tracking, I went home to my wife and I said, "We're buying another track car," and she said, "Over my dead body, we are." And I said, "No, this one's not for me. This one's for other people to drive." And she looked at me even more
perplexed,
going, "Well, yeah, like no, even more no." But where we are now is I needed to be able to share with people that are in chairs this freedom. And so what we do is we get people who use hand controls behind the wheel of performance cars, whether that is as an autocross or an HPDE, right, a high performance driver education day, so on a big track, or for those who physically can't do it, giving them ride-alongs. We get people out there behind the wheel of track cars. And so our goal is to normalize hand control driving. And what that means is putting hand controls at different tracks around this country, so that if you and I said, let's go to Laguna or let's go to Sebring, well, we can't do that now. You could go rent an Arrive and Drive car and go track it, but we can't do it together because there are no hand controls. Well, what people don't understand, it's very inexpensive to do. And once the hand controls have been installed, they can be removed and installed within 1 minute.
Wow.
So I think there's a misperception that, it costs $10,000-$20,000. It does not. Just Hands will actually pay for them to be installed to an Arrive and Drive. And they just need to offer it. And that's it.
Wow.
Right. So that's what Just Hands Foundation does.
Well, see, if you and I went to a track together, I think I'd want you driving. You probably wouldn't want to be in the passenger seat with me. It's been too long since I've been on a track. So when we get together someday, we'll do that. That sounds like a much safer venue than me at the wheel. So I want to talk about a special vehicle in your life. Maybe you want to talk about this race car. I mentioned, I love Caymans. I would love to have one someday. And the fact that you're racing one is very cool, because what a great race car that is.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the special car you'd like to share with us?
No, actually.
Okay.
They're great cars. Don't get me wrong. As race cars, they're wonderful. But my first car, so I'm not really a car guy. I didn't grow up with a father that knew about cars, or friends that turned wrenches. So I'm kind of new to the car world, per se. And so I say that, preface this, because I ended up buying a BMW M3 E92 that was orange.
Wow.
Unbeknownst to me, it was a Lime Rock edition.
Yes.
They had only made 200 of them.
Yeah.
And I managed to get it for very inexpensive, and I live 7 miles away from Lime Rock.
Amazing.
So the man who designed it, helped design it, Skip Barber, who is still at Lime Rock and is partial owner of Lime Rock. Well, I show up at Lime Rock and people are waving at me. And it's Memorial Day weekend and people are coming up and talking to me about this car. And I'm going, what is going on? Like, I know it's called the Lime Rock Edition, but what's happening? And everyone has a story about seeing their first Lime Rock Edition or being in one or whatever. And that was a really special moment to take a Lime Rock Edition to Lime Rock, where I live next to it, and track that car as my first track car was incredibly special. And, you know, it was so much bigger than me. It was so much bigger than hand controls. It just meant a lot. And so that would be kind of the special vehicle in my life.
Well, it brought a big smile on my face because my listeners know I'm a big BMW guy too. And I also am a big Porsche guy. In fact, I had a metallic orange 930 turbo for a long time that I call my orange crush. But that Lime Rock Edition, yeah, well, I did have a crush on that car. The Lime Rock Edition car, I remember when they came out, I bought all my BMWs and I've still got my '05, I bought it new, E46. What am I thinking here? E46 M3. Yep. And lost my train of thought. I'm so excited about the E92. And I remember Manfred, who owns BMW Northwest that we bought all our cars from, bought one of those. And I went in, I said, hey, can I buy this? And he goes, nope, I'm keeping this one. And I only got one allocation because they're not making many of them. He might even still have it. I'm not sure. But that car is cool. Do you still have it?
I don't. I mean, so I'm not a car collector guy. I'm a racer guy, and so you know, there's only a certain amount of money that goes around, and space as well. Yep. And so, when I got a race car, which then means that you need a truck and you need a trailer and you need you know everything else.
The slippery slope of racing.
Oh, it's I don't call it a slope. It's a cliff. Like it's you know, you go over that and you fall straight down. I decided, and the market was good, and there was, you know, Lime Rock Editions were hot for quite a while, and so I took the moment to let it go, unfortunately. But you know, I'd rather have loved and lost than never have loved at all.
That's
right?
The way
and
I look at it.
I definitely love her.
Yeah, I love it. So I crawl into my guest head a little bit here. I think this is a crazy place to crawl in your head. And I ask this question. If you were reincarnated, manifest as a vehicle, not what you want to be though, this is how you perceive yourself, the man in the mirror, as a vehicle, what would you be, but more importantly, why?
I don't drive one, but I think I would be a Land Rover Defender.
Okay, I kind of get why, but you tell me why.
Because there are obstacles in my way that seem somewhat insurmountable. And then you just kind of go, well, I either have to push a little bit or a lot of it on the throttle, and I'm going to get over it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to tip over doing it. And if I do, whatever will bring me up right again. But I'm somebody who keeps pushing and somebody who sees barriers and say, well, I'm going to figure this out, and we're going to traverse around it. And I'm sure there are other cars that do it. Maybe others that do it better, but the first one that comes to mind really is the Land Rover Defender. They are tough and they take a beating, but they still look good. And wow, that was arrogant. I didn't mean I look good. I didn't mean that. I meant that came out wrong. I meant like, well, whatever. Yes, you get where I'm going with that.
I think you don't have to worry about that, my friend. Very good. And how about a great book? Is there a book that you'd like to share?
I mean, admittedly, I'm not the biggest reader. I don't have time to read, but you know, if you were to ask me that, I'd say, you know, something that's near to my heart. Interestingly enough, The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman.
Oh yeah.
You know, while it's economical by nature, I think the macro lesson there is really interesting to me, and that is that we tend to be very geocentric as humans, and you know, hive-minded. The impetus I think Thomas was trying to make sense of is that you can find inspiration, beauty, smarts anywhere, and you know, look outside yourself. And you know, again, this was during the technological age where somebody in Thailand could be doing, something on computer just as well as somebody in the U.S. But again, the macro lesson to me is look everywhere, because if you only look around you, you're going to miss a lot.
Yeah, I read that book when it first came out. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it was at a time which we've come a long way, either good or bad, whatever the combination is. And I remember reading that book thinking, I never thought about it this way. And the way he described that, I believe the subtitle was something about a brief history of the 21st century, something like that. And yeah, I think it's a great book. And you can also buy that in an audio book. The narrator is a Wyman, memory here, Oliver Wyman. Great audiobook too. If you're out there running, walking, driving, whatever you do, scuba diving, jumping out of an airplane like this guy does, whatever you want to do, and listen to it that way. But I'm glad you brought that up. In fact, I'm kind of surprised. I don't know that any guest has ever brought that book up, which I'm kind of surprised because I've got a place on my website called Guest Recommended Books. There's over 3,000 books listed there by my inspiring automotive enthusiasts. So that's one you brought back. I'll have to pull that out again. And it's still even more relevant today than ever before.
Oh, yeah.
We all know that if we've ever called any customer service person and have a unique accent on the other end of the line, like, where on earth am I talking to this person? What part of the world are
100%.
they in today? Yeah, for sure. So let's go in the ultimate drive. I am an enabler, which is something I think that you like. I'm going to enable you to take a vehicle anywhere in the world. So you can pick any car, park it in your driveway. You can take it anywhere. And here's the key. You can take anybody with you, including somebody from the past that's no longer with us, which opens up a world of opportunities. So what does that ultimate drive look like for you?
So it's going to be, and I don't know what type because I'm not a car guy, but an old school Porsche.
Okay.
Through the Alps. In the streets like Oberpass, which is, a car and a half wide through the Swiss Alps where, it cuts down 2,000 feet to your right. And it's just the majesty and the beauty of that moment. There's serenity in there. And I would probably, there's so many people that I would take, but maybe it's because of this conversation, but I think I would take Maharishi Yogi out there because he is the founder of Transcendental Meditation, because he's so different than I am. I am so not that person. I am not, as I said, I'm not religious. I'm not, not into that kind of stuff, that I would want to take somebody who is fundamentally different than I am out onto a moment like that where you have to have trust in the other person, because those streets are not for the faint of heart.
No.
You have to trust, you have to pay attention, and to be able to take a Porsche, or even a BMW, because you and I share that together. Those are my two loves. And to go ripping through that mountainside and enjoy not just the drive, but the view and the conversation. I think that would probably be the ultimate drive for me.
Well, the first guy who's taken him with them. So that's pretty cool. And I've had a lot of interesting answers to that question, but that would be quite fascinating. I love it. So before I let you go today, and you've dropped a lot of golden wisdom bombs on us, as I say, golden nuggets, could you leave us with maybe a parting word of wisdom or advice when it comes to how people approach a life?
Yeah. I think learning from others without assumption is the most important part. There are a lot of people, I'm going to make this personal now, for people in chairs, is that there are a lot of assumptions that people make that they know. And to be very clear, I make assumptions about people too, right? I'm not above this. And I think assumptions are good to a degree, but when they make decisions for other people and they don't allow you to listen to the other person and what they're saying, that's when things become dangerous, and that's when things become unfair. And I've had a lot of people judge me and say, no, you can't do X, Y, or Z. And I say, well, I understand conceptually why you would make that comment or that decision. Please allow me to give you the other side of the story, or maybe enlighten you about what I've figured out. And lastly, maybe we can do this together. I think for the most part, the world is open, but I think assumptions are dangerous. And The second parting thought I will give, although you only asked for one, but I'll give two, is don't be afraid to ask questions. Because, I think our society has gotten to the point where we're not allowed to ask questions for fear of lawsuits or whatever. And it's a touchy subject. Not everyone likes to answer questions, but I think asking shows a willingness to learn. And that, to me, is the most important thing. And that's why I have the people around me that I do, because we are all insatiable when it comes to just wanting to know. And then how do we pass that along to people? And if I don't know, I'm going to tell you something really funny. And that's to say, Mark, I asked somebody about a year ago what a radiator is. and again,
Yeah.
everybody laughs when I say that. I didn't have a dad that knew about cars. I didn't have friends that knew about cars. I knew conceptually what a radiator is, right? But I didn't really know what a radiator was, but I knew how to drive. I was doing a 57.7 around Lime Rock, so I know how to drive. And anyone who knows that course, knows that I know what I'm doing. But I didn't know about cars, and I say that because I want people to feel empowered to not know and to learn, and then to ask. So that would be my parting wisdom. Always ask and always be willing to learn and challenge your assumptions, because you might just be not only surprised, but excited.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important. It goes back to the Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people. Habit 5, my favorite one, first listen to understand, then speak to be understood. And that
I like that.
Yeah, that asking questions thing is so important. I was taught that by my father. And I remember my son in junior high had come home, was frustrated with somebody in school, and it had to do with politics, of course. And it was, in junior high, you're just spewing what your parents are saying, basically. Not to disparage anybody in junior high, but I said, hey, Blake, to my son, I said, here's a better way to approach it. Instead of arguing with somebody, just ask questions. Why do you think that? Or what is it about that thought process that leads you to that conclusion? Just keep asking questions. Don't argue. Don't say what your opinion is, because you might learn something that might surprise you. But I also said you might beat the person down because they might not have the answers, and maybe it'll get them to think about why they're thinking the way they're thinking. So, yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of value bombs you dropped on us, my friend. How can people learn more about you?
The typical, it's we've got Torsten F. Gross on Instagram. We've got Just Hands Foundation on Instagram. We've got justhands.org. If you know somebody in the chair who wants to get behind the wheel of a performance car, there too, we've got a Porsche and a BMW, or just want to help out. And then last but not least, torstengross.com. And you've got it on your website. Just looking up on pennzoil.com also has the Joey spot with me and Joey, which is great. And, I encourage everybody to watch that too, because that opened his eyes to something new, right? And Joey was really, engaged with that. So it kind of goes back to learning again. Those would be the places that I'd say go check it out.
Absolutely. I'll put links to all of these on Torsten's, that's Torsten, Torsten Gross, but how can you forget his name after the rock band he's named after? So there you go. As you learned at the beginning of this talk, I want to do a shout out and a thank you to Jada White and Anna Barnes at Coin PR for putting me in touch with Torsten today. So ladies, thank you very much. Torsten, you have started my day spectacularly. I'm going to report back to you on my TM journey, my friend, because I'm going to hold myself accountable now that you have helped me or help to inspire me to take that path, because I know it will help me. I want to I appreciate you for who you are and your expertise and sharing your magnificent outlook on life. Until you and I talk again, my friend, I'll see you either down the road or probably at a racetrack.
I really hope so. I look forward to it, Mark. Thank you for the time as well. And thank you to everyone listening.
You bet. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. Hey, guess what? Some of you regular listeners will remember back in 2019, I created 10, 11 shows called Cars Yeah TV, where I went to some fabulous locations of past Cars Yeah guests, and we did a TV show about it. Well, they're up on the Cars Yeah YouTube channel. So go check it out at YouTube. Just type in Cars Yeah, and the shows will be there for you to enjoy. I hope you have fun watching.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.